Last week I was busy writing the script for my Origami King review when I suddenly had an eye-opening revelation. I suck at writing game reviews. I was a few pages in and started proofreading the first few paragraphs and I thought to myself, ugh, this is so boring. Sometimes you stumble upon things that just aren't you, if you know what I mean. And writing a structured review based on a checklist or blueprint, gameplay, story, replayability, all that jazz, it just doesn't work for me. I don't aspire to be a gaming journalist or a Nintendo news reporter. Not only are you competing with teams of people who have the speed, time, manpower, not to mention the experience to hammer out well-constructed reviews, but I like to think of my videos as little passion projects with my own twist to it. So I thought to myself, screw it. I threw my original script out the window and decided to do this my way and just talk about my experience and opinions. And after I'm done saying what I want to say, you can decide for yourself whether or not you think this game is worth your time and money. Or maybe you already played it yourself and just like to hear my opinion about it. That's cool too. That being said, in order to truly express my feelings about this game, I will have to go into milk spoiler territory. I will try my best to show things with as little context as possible so the story stays somewhat unspoiled. But at some point in the video I will talk about and show locations and events that play out later in the game. And of course I will give a proper spoiler warning when the time comes. So without further ado, let's unfold this little adventure. Alright, let's get this out of the way first. I want to briefly touch upon the divisiveness and negativity this game received upon release and even before it saw the light of day. Now look, I love the older games. The Thousand Year Door is one of my favorite games of all time. I am one of those fanboys. To give a quick rundown of my experience with the series, Paper Mario 64, which I played first, was amazing. The Thousand Year Door was amazing. Super Paper Mario I greatly enjoyed, however, due to the game being so radically different gameplay-wise, I always treated it more as sort of a spin-off game. A mix between Super Mario and Paper Mario. Sticker Star can go f itself, and Color Splash I never played. This was a conscious decision by me at the time, because frankly, the game just gave me too much Sticker Star PTSD. You ain't fooling me, Nintendo. Calling them cards is not gonna magically make me forget that the cards are the same thing as stickers. Simply put, everything this game presented to me at the time just didn't spark my interest. So I can totally sympathize with those of you who are still on the fence about giving Origami King a try. $60 is a lot of money, and if you're a cheap bastard like me, you might want to save those Benjamin Franklins, or in my case, Roman architecture, for something you know you're going to enjoy and support. And to those people I say, all the power to you. However, there is a special breed of gamers out there. These rare specimens have made it their mission not to just voice their distaste of a game, but to make sure that the whole world knows it, and seem to find great enjoyment in making sure the game fails on every conceivable level because it isn't what they want it to be. Even if you genuinely feel the game isn't good, the game is not worth a zero, guys. Just the fact that the game boots up and runs well is already worth a point. You know what I did when Color Splash came out? Nothing. I just said, nope, not for me. And I picked up some games I actually liked playing. What a novel concept, right? Now, I get that for some people, the new direction of the series is disappointing. I do. I too would have loved to see another Thousand Year Door type of game, but continuously crying over spilled milk and fighting tooth and nail to get your points across isn't doing anyone any favors. There are 3 amazing games out there that are right up your alley you can always go back to and play again. Paper Mario is just one of many, many franchises out there. And the world is not going to end because one series is no longer going in the direction you want it to. In other news, the world is going to end. Throughout the course of my playthrough of the game, my reaction slowly evolved from alright to alright to then. This game freaking rules. You can have rave parties involving trees, vandalize walls, race around in a piece of footwear, throw confetti around like a stage magician, play the Wind Waker, and of course take your aggression out on helpless toads. While I didn't play Color Splash, I do think that the game looked amazing, and I don't think the graphics were ever the issue for most people. Sticker Star started this whole paper and cardboard aesthetic, but whereas that game looks bland and empty, Origami King is just bursting with life and color. One single screen just bombards you with all kinds of little details. Some might prefer the mix between the 2D characters and the 3D environment seen in the first two games, but for me this paper-crafted world just works very well, and it's not like everything is too abstract either. Houses still look like houses, furniture like furniture, and Zonai Dungeon statues like Zonai Dungeon statues. And it's actually interesting to see how these objects are constructed using these materials. I don't think the environments in Thousand Year Door were bad by any means, but this world presented in Origami King just makes sense to me and complements the paper inhabitants. Story-wise, the game is definitely more simplistic, and this is one of the few things I do think the older games just flat out did better. Pun intended. Thousand Year Door didn't necessarily have the most complex story, but it's the amazing sub-stories in each chapter that made it so great. From a mystery on a train, to a fighting ring in which fighters have been disappearing under suspicious circumstances, to a town of shadow people who are one by one turning into pigs with each chime of a mysterious bell, you name it. What I do like about Origami King though is the fact that they did away with the whole collect the 7 thingamajigs to win game. That stuff was getting old anyway. Origami King is more of a point A to B type of adventure. You are constantly following the various streamers which have mummified Peach's castle, and while you could consider Toad Town to be the central hub of the game, it doesn't necessarily feel like it. Aside from buying stuff and collecting extras, you only really need to come back here, I think, 2 times if you're only sticking to the main storyline. Whereas in Thousand Year Door, you always went back to Rogueport in between chapters and figure out where to go next from there. Which was fine, but Origami King's approach isn't necessarily worse, just different. And it definitely beats the hell out of the level select system from Color Splash and Sticker Star. I will talk a little bit more about the story in a later point of the video, but first I want to get the battle system out of the way. This is by far the most controversial part of the game, and the only thing I'm really conflicted about. On the one hand, I kinda like it, and I commend Nintendo for trying something new. I'm not gonna go in depth and explain all the little intricacies about the battle system. There's plenty of videos out there who will gladly lay it out for you. But the main gist of it is you spin the arena to line up enemies in either squares or lines. Lines are for jumping, squares for hammering. A good lineup results in your attacks dealing 1.5 times the damage. There's weapons you can equip, items you can use, and surprisingly enough, the game does have sort of a badge system to increase your damage, defense, or get some extra time to figure out the proper lineup during each turn. It's not nearly as expansive as the badges in A Thousand Year Door, but hey, it's there. And then there's the boss battles, which last considerably longer and all have their own way of approaching the fight. Some mess with the arena, some have devastating attacks which need to be avoided or can only be defeated using specific attacks or special moves. I never found the battles to be boring or tedious to the point that it ruined the game for me. And this is coming from someone who absolutely sucks at this stuff. There have been more than enough moments where I just couldn't figure out the proper lineup and had to either spend a lot of money to literally buy myself more time or just settle with weaker attacks than I care to admit. There is, however, one glaring issue, and one which I definitely side with the critics on. The battles are not rewarding enough. There are, for instance, no experience points. Nintendo's stubbornness to not include more incentive to willingly take part in these fights is one that will forever be one of life's greatest mysteries. It really isn't rocket science here, guys. If you're gonna have a turn-based battle system, you gotta reward the player. All you get is coins, and coins are not exactly hard to come by. Even while avoiding most battles, I still managed to Bill Gates my way through this game. I never even came close to running out, and I think Nintendo was fully aware of this problem. And it almost seems like they purposely worked around it. Not by having a level system, or at the very least have enemies drop good weapons or helpful items, but by making certain enemies unavoidable. This doesn't happen too often, so again, it's not like you're gonna be forced into a battle every few minutes, but it is kind of hilarious that this is their solution to the problem. Most of the regular overworld enemies are painfully easy to avoid, which, like I said, seems like it was almost done on purpose. Remember how in Thousand Year Door you had enemies that just came flying at you at Mach 5 from off screen and you're like, oh shit, or these piranha plants who spring up all over the place? Yeah, compare that to Origami King's enemies.
Wait a second. Wait, bro, wait.
Although the game does lose a few points on this, I stand by the fact that this is by no means game-breaking. I never really played Paper Mario games for the combat system. As someone who's played his fair share of RPGs, as far as RPGs go, even Thousand Year Door had the most bare-bones stripped-down iteration of a turn-based battle system, and this was done on purpose. The games were always meant to be accessible for everyone. As opposed to more complex RPGs with hit points ranging into the thousands, party management, jobs, skill trees, and tons of gear with various status effects, Paper Mario has always kept it simple, and I don't remember ever having to grind to be able to beat it. For me, the biggest reason for picking up a Paper Mario game has always been the story, the characters, and the humor, which Origami King has in spades. Speaking of story, comedically large spoiler alert. From this point on, I will be showing quite some stuff about the mid to late game, so if you're still planning on picking it up, pause the video, play the game, and I will see you again in about 15 to 20 hours. First off, the characters. The characters in this game rock. Olivia alone is probably one of the best companion characters in the series, including Thousand Year Door. She's like that optimistic friend you always want to bring with you on a night out because you know you're gonna have a good time. She's witty, she's charming, and managed to get more than enough chuckles out of me. But she's not there for just comedic relief either, as even she has her moments in the story where she struggles with something or is sad and depressed and you are tasked with cheering her up, which I was more than happy to do. Her dialogue is great, and by the end of the adventure you really feel like you have bonded with her. Aside from Olivia, there's a plethora of characters which tag along with you for a while. Characters like Bobby, who has a great character arc, and Kamek, who is really funny, especially when interacting with characters like Olivia and Bowser Jr. They aren't always the most helpful in combat as you have no control over their actions, but they do attack enemies when they feel like it. Sure, it might not be on the level of the first two games where you can use their special abilities and control them in combat. Their biggest contribution is complementing the narrative, and just like with Olivia, there are some hilarious and even touching moments to be had with them. Seeing all these characters interact with each other even in real time while you explore the overworld really adds to the charm of the game. The main antagonist, King Ollie, who is Olivia's brother, isn't necessarily the most memorable Mario villain ever, but it's still a big step up from Color Splash, which went back to Bowser being the main bad guy. And in Origami King, you actually have that classic team up with Bowser later in the game, and he is funny as he's ever been. Some have criticized Ollie's motivations for doing what he does, but come on. It's a Mario villain, not a Metal Gear Solid antagonist. It's not like there's a high standard here. He's just a very emo guy who wants to take over the world. Each chapter in the game sees you visiting many different locations, all with their own look and feel and little sub-story to go with it. Not only that, but Origami King is a game that just keeps on giving. I was pleasantly surprised just how many different things this game makes you do. One moment you're racing around the desert in a shoe, next you're suddenly in a quiz show, exploring an ocean and fishing for treasures. Or you're in a first-person aerial battle shooting bombs at incoming paper planes. Just look at these little guys go. This is what they live for, blowing themselves up for the greater good. You gotta respect it. This game is like a party that just keeps on going. Speaking of parties, confetti! When I first saw the trailers and gameplay demonstrations, I thought this confetti mechanic was going to play a much bigger role in the game. But unlike Color Splash and its paint mechanic, the confetti isn't used in combat at all. The only function it serves is to cross specific gaps or get coins. And if you're OCD like me, you're gonna want to fill every hole in the world. No, I shouldn't phrase it like that. Repair every gap in the fabric of reality just because it feels good to do. And you get coins for it in return, which is nice. Other than that, the confetti is just there. I think there's only 2 instances where the game artificially drains your confetti to a point where you have to search around for more in order to progress. Aside from that, it can literally be found everywhere by bashing every tree, plant or flower. Which is funny because at the end of each chapter, the game makes this whole big triumphant deal out of the fact that your confetti bag has now expanded. Okay. Cool. Thanks? The same thing goes for the thousandfold arms, which outside of battles isn't even used that much other than little interactions with the world here and there. But in terms of battles, I gotta say it does feel good bashing away at an enemy using the motion controls. Yeah, look at this. This is brutal. Damn! The bosses as characters were definitely not on par with the older games. But as I stated before, the battles themselves were entertaining for me, and somehow I find it kind of hilarious that they are simply office supplies. Each one does have its own personality, believe it or not. Colored Pencils is a snobby artist, Rubber Band is a flamboyant lover of theater and drama, and Hole Punch is a passionate disco queen, just to name a few. Again, they are no Hooktail or Grubba, but at the same time, they are nowhere near as bad and uninspired as some people made them out to be. And the way they all have their own unique traits when it comes to boss battles, like taping the rings together so you are limited in the way you spin the arena, or how Hole Punch takes away parts of Mario's body and decreases his total HP, makes each one a joy to fight. In how many games are you trying to get your face back? And I don't mean metaphorically, I mean literally your face is gone. There it is, now you have to go get it back. Exactly. Each battle feels like a puzzle you need to solve, and I happen to like puzzles, even though I'm bad at them. Lastly, and I think this goes without saying, the music is great as always. There's so many different tracks and different styles, you can really tell that the composers had a lot of fun with this one. All in all, I think the game is just a great little adventure with a lot of enjoyable moments. The series might not be what it used to be, but that doesn't take away from the fact that it's obvious that a lot of love was poured into this game. In fact, I think the best way to approach this game is to just forget that the 1000-Year Door exists. Just take that game, set it aside for a while, and just try to enjoy what is here. It's not a bad game. On the contrary, it's a not bad game, aka good. Not every game has to be that big blockbuster or lightning in a bottle type of game, and just the sheer existence of the 1000-Year Door is not a valid argument to hate on Origami King. It's meant to be experienced as a standalone, fun little adventure. Since this isn't a real review, I'm not gonna rate the game, but I would put it in the same category as Luigi's Mansion 3. Just fun little experiences with some clever puzzles, simple yet effective stories, and some genuinely funny moments. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have some whacking to do.